listening to Unravel with Natalie Denise.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Nightly with Natalie, as well as the Daily Traffic. We're at episode 92. That's astounding. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thanks for showing up. I already see you guys. What's going on? Hot Chicks, Mark, Rana, hello, what's up? And to all the others that are joining in right now. Oh, okay. So let's talk about a little bit about the Russian sanctioning Biden and the rest. There was a Facebook post. We're just going to jump right in, guys. We're just going to jump. We're going to cannonball right in today's into today's segment. So there was a Facebook post by a Russian. Uh-oh, what's going on? Everything's acting so strange for me. Everything is acting so strange for me. Okay, let me remove this. Stop screen. So I was sharing a screen on this, and then it just disappeared. And then I actually posted something on my Instagram, and it disappeared. Like nobody's able to see it. It's so strange. I think I don't know. It's not coming. I'm not like that. Wow, what's going on with all this stuff? Okay, cool. All right, let's try this again. As I was saying, I posted something on my Instagram momentarily ago. This isn't even showing up. Why not? That's so strange. What? Okay, we're going to do this a different way. Let me do this because it's not showing my windows. So I'm going to have to share my entire screen. So let's see if you guys will see this. Screen 2, share. Well, that's my channel dashboard. There we go. No, it's the browser can't access your screens. Try capturing a different screen if this continues. Guys, they're messing with me today. They're messing with me today. Share screen. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. This is so strange. This has never happened in a live before. Okay, share screen 1. Share. No, it's not letting me share my screen today. So I guess you guys won't have visuals. If that's okay with you. StreamYard is not letting me share my screen. I don't know why that is. See, virtual background, hotkeys, layouts, general. I don't know what's going on, but it won't let me share any screen whatsoever. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to share the news without any visuals today because it won't let me apparently, very strangely. Here we go. Let me see. Look. Can you guys see the Clinton Foundation, the Breitbart article? Let me see if this shows. My goodness. This is wild. Sorry, guys. Super technical difficulties today. I don't usually do. Usually I'm able to just jump right in it, but not today. Wow. Okay. Well, something doesn't want me to share some news because I was actually going to go into the Hillary Clinton sanctioning by Russia. But guess what? I'm going to share it anyway. I don't know why this is not letting me share the screen. It never happens where it doesn't let me share ever. But anyway, I know people over at Patriot Voice are watching me. Sorry, guys. This never happens ever. But today it did. But we're going to jump straight to it. Russia sanctions Hillary Clinton. It's very strange. So on Tuesday, I heard of this, that Russia placed sanctions on multiple people, including Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. And, a lot of the normies are kind of suspecting, well, this is kind of weird. Why are they sanctioning Hillary Clinton? She's no longer a politician, right? So we're going to dive into this. This is coming from Breitbart. Russia applied sanctions to Hillary Clinton on Tuesday, in addition to sanctioning President Joe Biden, his son Hunter, and several other U.S. officials and political personalities. This is coming from Breitbart once again. The sanctions were described as a retaliation for similar sanctions by the Biden administration late last month in response to Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Clinton infamously benefited indirectly from Russian largesse as Secretary of State when her husband, former President Bill Clinton, received a $500,000 speaking fee for a lecture in Moscow in 2010. Just after a Russian company moved into control, a U.S. uranium company, a move to which the State Department did not object, as the New York Times reported shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One. Mr. Clinton received $500,000 for a Moscow speech from a Russian investment bank with links to the Kremlin that was promoting Uranium One stock. The Hillary Clinton campaign also paid for a Russian dossier on then candidate, when he was a candidate, DJT, fabricated using information allegedly obtained from Igor Dushenko, and researched who was once suspected to being a Russian spy. In the statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry explained its rationale and provided a list of those facing sanctions. They say, this was translated from a Facebook post, in response to a series of unprecedented sanctions that prohibit, among other things, entry to the United States for top officials of the Russian Federation. Starting March 15th, the Russian top list includes the basis of reciprocity: President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and Chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff Mark Milley, as well as several agency heads and other prominent U.S. figures. This step has taken as a response measure. It is inevitable result of the extreme Russia-phobic policy. I just love how they flip that back onto the United States, because this is like their obics and isms, everything is ism or phobic. So we're Russia-phobic now of the policy and current U.S. administration, which desperate attempts to maintain American hegemony, has abandoned any sense of decorum and placed its bets on a head-on containment of Russia. However, we do not oppose maintaining official ties when it is in our national interests, and if necessary, we will address the issues arising from the status of blacklisted individuals in order to organize high-level contacts. The list of U.S. citizens included in the stop list as it follows: Joseph Biden, Antony Blinken, Lloyd James Austin, Mark Alexander Milley, Jacob Jeremiah Sullivan, National Security Advisor, William Joseph Burns, Jennifer Rennie Psaki. Circle back, Psaki is in trouble too. Dalip Singh, the Deputy of National Security Advisor, Samantha Jane Power, Robert Hunter Biden, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Adewale Adeyemo, U.S. Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Rita Jo Lewis, President of the Chair of the Board of Directors and Export and Import Bank of the United States. More announcements will be made soon concerning the expansion of sanctions list to include other top U.S. officials, military leaders, lawmakers, business executives, experts, and media personalities. Oh, snap. Media personalities who promote Russia-phobia or contribute to inciting hatred of Russia or imposing restrictive measures. These actions will be taken in harmony with the major decisions of the government of the Russian Federation in finance, banking, and other areas to protect the Russian economy and to ensure its stable development. That is astounding. So just a couple weeks ago, actually, you guys heard that actually Putin was putting, it was sort of like, I made a video on the executive order that Abraham Lincoln made back in 1864, where he was arresting journalists who were treasonous and aiding and abetting the enemy against the United States. I feel in a way this is, he started at that point, but he's really expanding really fast because this is escalating at a fast pace. Whoa, cheese and crackers, that's a lot. So, I mean, they listed Hillary Clinton. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Because this actually sucks. I love having like visual aids while I share my content, but this is not working with me. Okay, anyway, no worries. So I wanted to dive into Hillary Clinton, and I really wanted to know what exactly,
A lot of times Americans always want to know
what exactly she has done in alignment with Ukraine. Ukrainian to U.S. prosecutors. This was back in 2019. Why don't you want our evidence on your Democrats? This was back in 2019. And this notably, looking back, never gained any speed or height within the media, of course, because they wouldn't want to report on these types of alliances or these types of, path crossings. Ukrainian law enforcement officials believe they have evidence of wrongdoing by American Democrats and their allies in Kiev, ranging from a 2016 election interference by obstructing criminal probes, but they say they've been thwarted in trying to get the Trump Justice Department to act. So this was back, again, 2019. This is reported by The Hill. Custodian Kulik, deputy lead of the Prosecutor General's International Legal Cooperation Department, told me and other senior law enforcement officials they tried unsuccessfully since last year to try to get visas to the U.S. Embassy in Kiev to deliver their evidence to Washington. We were supposed to share this information during a working trip to the United States, Kulik told me, who is the author of this article, in a wide-ranging interview. However, the U.S. ambassador blocked us from obtaining a visa. She didn't explicitly deny our visa, but also didn't give it to us. That's strange. One focus of Ukrainian investigators, Kulik said, had been money spirited unlawfully out of Ukraine and moved to the United States by businessmen friendly to the prior pro-Russia regime of Viktor Yanukovych. Ukrainian businessmen authorized payments for lobbying efforts directed at the U.S. government, he told me. In addition, these payments were made from funds that were acquired during a money laundering operation. We have information that the U.S. company has been involved in these payments. That company is tied to one or more prominent Democrats, Ukrainian officials insist. In another instance, he said Ukrainian authorities gathered evidence that money paid to an American Democrat allegedly was hidden by Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau during the 2016 election under pressure from U.S. officials. In the course of this investigation, we found that there was a situation during which influence was exerted on the NABU so that the name of the American would not be mentioned, he said. Ukraine is infamous for corruption and disinformation operations. Its police agencies fight over what is considered evidence of wrongdoing. Kulik said his bosses even have political fights over who should and shouldn't be prosecuted. Consequently, allegations emanating from Kiev usually are taken with a grain of salt, but many of the allegations shared by me, more than a half a dozen senior Ukrainian officials, are supported by evidence that emerged in recent U.S. court filings and intelligence reports. The Ukrainians told me that their evidence includes sworn statements from 2 Ukrainian officials admitting that their agency tried to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election in favor of Hillary Clinton. The effort included leaking an alleged ledger showing payments to then Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Contacts between Democratic figures in Washington and Ukrainian officials that involved passing along dirt on Donald Trump. financial records showing Ukrainian natural gas company routed more than $3 million to American accounts tied to Hunter Biden, younger son of the vice president, then or now president Joe Biden, who managed U.S.-Ukraine relations for the Obama administration. Biden's son served on the board of a Ukrainian natural gas company, Burisma Holdings. Records, this is the next one, records that Vice President Biden, then Vice President, now resident Biden, pressured Ukrainian officials in March of 2016 to fire the prosecutor who oversaw an investigation of Burisma Holdings. You guys remember this. There's a video of Joe Biden flaunting this in a press conference, who plans to interview Hunter Biden about the financial transfers. Correspondence showing members of the State Department and U.S. Embassy in Kyiv interfered or applied pressure in criminal cases on Ukrainian soil. Disbursements as of $7 billion in Ukrainian funds that prosecutors believe they may have been misappropriated or taken out of the country, including to the United States. Continued. Ukrainian officials say they don't want to hand evidence to FBI agents working in Ukraine because they believe the Bureau has a close relationship with the NABU and the U.S. Embassy. It is no secret in Ukrainian political circles that NABU was created with Americans to help and tried to exert influence during the U.S. presidential election, Kulik told me. Kulik's boss, Prosecutor General Yuri Lutsenko, told me he has enough evidence, particularly involving Biden, his family, and money spirited out of Ukraine to warrant a meeting with the U.S. Attorney General William Barr. He says, I'm looking forward to meeting with the Attorney General of the United States in order to start and facilitate our joint investigation regarding the appropriation of another $7 billion in US dollars with Ukrainian legal origin, Lutsenko said. I wrote last week that Biden in a 2016 pressured Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to fire Ukraine's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who was investigating Burisma. Kulik confirmed Ukraine is investigating that alleged incident. We have evidence and witnesses stating that Joe Biden applied pressure on Ukrainian law enforcement to stop the investigation. You guys, is this the first time that you hear this? Let me peep in the chat really quick. Is this the first time that you hear this? This is insanity. So again, this was back in 2019. They had evidence. This was an earlier alignment of Hillary Clinton and Ukraine. Mind you, this is why I'm going through this. I actually want to like read it through with you guys, but this is insanity. What was he, a law enforcement? He's like a law enforcement like general or who is it? Ukrainian law enforcement official. This Ukrainian law enforcement official had all this evidence, all of it, all this evidence, and he is directly naming out, look, these are the things that we have in an outline tying the Biden family to all of this Ukrainian corruption. Ukrainian officials have gone public in recent days. Mind you, again, this was written back in 2019. With their frustrations after months of trying to deliver the evidence quietly to the Trump Department of Justice, DOJ fizzled. Unable to secure visas from the U.S. Embassy, some Ukrainian law enforcement officials sought backdoor channels, Kulik said. Okay, so let me actually also fill you guys in on this. So there was actually also the Ukrainian... Let me take a peep at this. And actually, Politico wrote on this. I was read. This is a super long article. Why I'm reading this out to you guys is because it's going to help me with my next piece. One of my next pieces, because I have a backlog of pieces. This is going to help me with my next piece because I really want to drill down on this already being out there, and I had no idea. But there was let me try to find it. an embassy. She was a Ukrainian embassy worker, and her assistant, is it all the way up here or all the way down there? Her assistant, here we go. She said she shared her concern with Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S., Valery Shaley, and one of his top aides, Oksana Shulyar, during a March 26 meeting at the Ukrainian embassy. According to some briefed on the meeting, Shaley said that that Manafort, because you guys already know the narrative, what they were trying to do with DJT and the Russia collusion narrative and all that, right? So this Politico article actually tells all of the logistics of how they went through the motions, the people that they talked to in order to obtain some of this information. So a lot of those pieces that you guys saw within Trump's presidency, accusing him of Russia collusion, all these things, a lot of it derived from this very group of people that were connected to the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States. So that's not a surprise to me that they were not able, because they were trying to hey, Trump, got some evidence, trying to give it to you under the radar or whatever. They were trying to get visas to the United States, and the embassy would not. They would not let them have it. This all makes sense. The U.S. embassy would not let them. So I'm kind of doing like a live dig right now, if you guys couldn't tell. The U.S. embassy would not let them. And that tells us why. They were actively trying to purport this. They were actively trying to dig this dirt up on DJT and Manafort. So just a little side note on that. So they were denied visas. One of those avenues involved reaching out last fall to former federal prosecutor from George W. Bush years. According to interviews, he delivered a written summary of some of the Ukrainian allegations to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, along with an offer to connect U.S. investigators with individuals purporting to have the evidence. There was no response or follow-up, according to multiple people directly familiar with the... guys, this is the DS. We found it. Bingo. This is exactly everything you're seeing in the media, all of the propaganda. This is why this information's already been published. It's just a matter of going back and looking at this. They were trying to tell us back in 2019, look, this Ukrainian law enforcement official has all of this evidence of these people being aligned over in Ukraine, but the ambassadors, the Ukrainian U.S. ambassadors wouldn't even let anything in or out. And then it says here, let me just repeat that part. One of those avenues involved reaching out last fall to a former federal prosecutor from George W. Bush's years. Oh, well, that doesn't surprise us, right? That doesn't surprise us. According to interviews, he delivered a written summary of some of the Ukrainian allegations to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, along with an offer to connect U.S. investigators with individuals purporting to have the evidence. There was no response or follow-up, according to multiple people directly familiar with the effort. More recently, President Trump's private attorney, Rudy Giuliani, former mayor and former U.S. attorney in New York City, learned about some of the allegations while on behalf of Trump's legal team, he looked into the Ukrainian involvement in the 2016 election. Since then, Lutsenko and others have talked with other American lawyers about helping to file U.S. legal action to recover money they believe was wrongly taken from their country. It's like no one in the DOJ is listening. There is some compelling evidence that should be at least looked at, evaluated, but the door seems shut at both state and justice, said an American who has been contacted for help and briefed on the evidence. State Department officials declined to address whether they denied or slow-walked visas for Ukrainian officials. Visa records are confidential under U.S. law. Therefore, we cannot discuss the details of individual visa cases, and a department spokesperson said. Ukraine's evidence is, if true, would mark the first documented allegation of Democrats receiving assistance from a foreign power in their efforts to help Clinton win the 2016 election. Oh boy, cheese and crackers. That's a lot. And we're not even through. We're almost through, but when you know that meme where the guy has like all the papers, like, and then he has yarn. He's like this with a cigarette in his hands. Like, that's what I feel like right now, because it's like, oh my gosh, there's a Durham investigation and the people are connected to Durham, and then this was already published information, but if we just take it from the past and connect it, everything just makes sense. It looks like there's some evidence emerging that could have been a proxy war between Russia and Ukraine to secure their preferred American president during the 2016 race, said a former top intelligence official who now advises the Trump administration on intelligence policy. But I just don't understand why that rhetoric still stands. I don't understand why that rhetoric still stands, because they debunked the whole thing with the Russia collusion. So why are they still saying that, Russia wanted their president in the United States when that was literally debunked? There's no saying of that anymore. So I don't know. But this, again, I'm giving grace because this was back in 2019. There is public source information in Ukraine and the United States that gives credence to some of what Ukrainian prosecutors allege. A court in Ukraine formally concluded that law enforcement officials there illegally tried to intervene in the 2016 US election by leaking documents of Manafort's business dealings after he was named Trump's campaign chairman. And a Ukrainian parliamentarian released a purported tape, a recording of the top Ukrainian law enforcement official bragging that he was responsible for the leak and he was trying to help Clinton win. So there's a lot of other logistics with Manafort, because they tried to almost do like a mini Russia collusion in a way, where they leaked his finances and they tried to like conflate him to a crime, or conflate him to actions that would align with like the Russia collusion sort of act, because he was in communication with some Russian oligarchs, but it wasn't necessarily out of malice. But this guy, he said he was trying to help Hillary Clinton win. Lutsenko told Hill TV that an interview aired last week that at the time had opened a criminal investigation into these allegations. Nellie Orr, wife of the senior justice official and researcher for the Fusion GPS opposition research firm, testified to Congress last year that some of the Fusion GPS's research on Trump-Russia ties came from a Ukrainian parliamentarian. The Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign paid Fusion GPS to dig up dirt on Trump. Although Orr, the wife of senior justice official and researcher for the Fusion GPS, acknowledged the Ukrainian source, lawmakers did not press her to be more specific. Politico reported in 2017 on evidence of Ukraine's U.S. embassy helping the Clinton campaign to discredit Trump. A Ukrainian American operative who is consulting with the Democratic National Committee met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump and top campaign aide Paul Manafort and Russia, the newspaper reported. Separately, the conservative nonprofit Citizens United last month filed a lawsuit seeking to force the State Department to disclose all information it possesses about Hunter Biden, his business partners involved with Ukraine-based Burisma Holdings. If Ukrainian prosecutors can augment their allegations with real evidence, there could be a true case of collusion worth investigating. The only question is why the U.S. government so far hasn't taken interest and whether Attorney General Barr will change that. Oh boy, my goodness, this is insane. And that's just a little bit. I mean, I'm telling you, there's so much more. Like Politico, I actually read through this long Politico article that they referenced. It was written back in 2017, and it it is contained with all of the intricate logistics of how, Hillary Clinton's allies and U.S. Ukrainian ambassadors, like how they were all in this, including the journalists that were sourcing their information from this. We'll just say it's fluff, right? They fluffed it up. So with that being said, my goodness, I know that was a bit of a longer part. That's why I wanted to jump right in. I'm sorry that my screen isn't sharing my content, but that was something I really needed to talk about today. But we can jump to trafficking news. Here we go. All right. Okay. What's going on in the daily traffic? So we've got a lot of news for the daily traffic. First, we're going to start off in Canada. We don't really see too many Canadian sex trafficking stories, but this did drop today. This is coming from cbc.ca. I know it's a mainstream out there, but they're reporting it, one of the few. 3 men are charged after Kingston child sexual exploitation sting. This is in Canada. It says 3 Ontario men are facing a variety of child exploitation charges after they allegedly tried to lure children into meeting them for sexual purposes. Let me throw my logo up so I have a little indicator here when I'm editing. The charges were laid after a 4-day joint investigation last September involving Ontario Provincial Police and Kingston Police. 6 officers working undercover used social media and online chat rooms designed for children to find people looking to exploit children in the Kingston, Ontario area, police wrote in a news release Wednesday. One of the men facing charges traveled from Toronto and rented a hotel room in Kingston to meet an officer he thought was a child, investigators allege. 2 of the men were arrested when they tried to meet a child. At an arranged location, police said that the third was arrested months later once police were able to identify him. A 35-year-old man from Perth, Ontario, is charged with 1 count each of internet luring, making sexually explicit material available to someone under the age of 16, and indecent exposure to a person under 16. A 31-year-old man from Verona, Ontario, is charged with 2 counts of the internet luring, attempting to make child pornography, and attempting sexual interference. A 40-year-old man from Toronto is charged with 2 counts of internet luring and 1 count of transmitting sexually explicit material to a child under the age of 16. Whew. That was, again, coming from Canada. The next story coming from Kentucky. Just make sure that I don't have a repetitive story. This is from Kentucky, more specifically in Ohio County in Kentucky. An Ohio County man sentenced to 235 months for child exploitation crimes. This is coming from Tri-State homepage. An Ohio County man was sentenced on Tuesday to 235 months in federal prison, followed by a 10-year term of supervised release for distribution and possession of child pornography. According to court documents, Freddie Fulton, who is 41 years old of Beaver Dam, used a messaging application to upload an image of child pornography. Police say they searched Fulton's home and found 286 images and 25 videos of child pornography. Authorities say the collection included victims around the world, including Germany and Netherlands, Ukraine, and the United States. Since there is no parole in the federal system, Fulton will serve his full sentence. Well, good. At least that's some light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, this is completely disgusting. 286 images and 25 videos of child pornography. We talked about this yesterday about how sickos get to the stage of why they have to have like this continuous pushing the bar with having to acquire like material that is obscene, and they just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Actually, it was the arrest of the what was it, like the 43 New Zealanders. You guys remember that story we went through the other day? The police actually explained this. This was like a 2-year investigation that they did that uncovered an entire global pedophilia ring online. And they were talking about this example of how it's like a wall. Like when you have this wall and you go over that wall of like, let's just say that's your cap, like that's your consciousness. When you go over that, you no longer feel like you're ashamed or like this is something bad that you're doing. You start feeling comfortable. That's what he was explaining. So a lot of these sickos out there, what they do is they down that wall, they crack that wall down. And now they feel, especially when they're in a community with each other, they feel like they're safe. That's why you see so many of these exploitative stories coming out as I report day to day, right? All right, next one coming from Wayne County. This is from allongeorgia.com. A Wayne County man, this is Georgia, arrested on sexual exploitation of children charges. The GBI-CEACC unit began an investigation into Shaw's online activity after receiving numerous cyber tips by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children regarding the online possession of images depicting child sexual abuse material, CSAM for short. That's an acronym. This investigation led to a search warrant at Shaw's camper home, where digital devices were searched and seized, and Shaw was subsequently arrested. The GBI-CEACC unit was assisted in the execution of the search warrant by the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. This investigation is part of an ongoing effort by the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force with the GBI's Child Exploitation and Computer Crimes Unit to identify those involved in the child pornography trade. And he is a 60-year-old man. His full name is James Burton Shaw of Wayne County. He was arrested on March 11th on charges of sexual exploitation of children, possession of child sexual abuse material. He was arrested by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Child Exploitation and Computer Crimes Unit and transported to the Wayne County Jail. And the next story coming from WRIC, and this is in the Virginia area. Middlesex man sentenced to 105 years for online child sex offenses. Again, these are we're coming up with new stories every single day, guys. This is insane. And sometimes I can't even get to all of the exploitation stories because there's some stories that are indictments, charges, people that are sentenced. So there's only so many stories that I can fit in. But this is depicting a big problem in our society. Daniel Gareth Ebinger, 25 years old. He threw his life away. This is a young dude. Pled guilty in Middlesex County Circuit Court on Wednesday to multiple child exploitation charges. The guilty offenses included 1 count of internet solicitation of a minor, 1 count of possession of child pornography, first offense, and 9 counts of possession of child pornography, second or subsequent offense. Circuit Court Judge Jeffrey W. Shaw sentenced Ebinger to 7 years of active imprisonment with an additional 98 years suspended. Upon his release, Ebinger will be placed on supervised probation and be required to register as a sex offender in any jurisdiction where he lives or works. I am proud of my team for successfully prosecuting this case and ensuring that justice was served, said Attorney General Jason Miyares. The Office of the Attorney General has no tolerance for crimes against children and will not stop prosecuting these cases to the fullest extent of the law. Ebinger was originally caught in 2019 when the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children discovered that an individual had uploaded child pornography to various internet accounts and solicited sexually explicit images online from minors on multiple occasions beginning in 2014. Detectives in the Southern Virginia Internet Crimes Against Children identified the online predator as Ebinger after an undercover detective posed as a 15-year-old girl. When Ebinger discovered he was talking to a 15-year-old, he wanted to continue to engage in a sexually charged conversation with them. So they executed a search warrant at his residence where they seized the electronic devices used to conduct the criminal activity. Forensic examination of those devices revealed that Ebinger had saved approximately 200 images of child pornography. He admitted to his crimes during questioning. And again, this is it is such a shame because he's so young, threw his entire life away. All right. And then this is more of a sad story. So you guys know the deficit in safe houses in America right now. And, this is this is another blow to the industry, the counter trafficking industry, anti-trafficking industry, whatever you want to call it. In Austin, they're reporting that a sex trafficking shelter temporarily closes in a settlement with committee. Basically what's happening is they're building this shelter in Austin for sex trafficking victims, and there was a lawsuit imposed to them by the HOA. And the HOA is basically saying because they built cabins on this land, and the cabins, I guess, touch a piece of land, and they're telling them, and these cabins are already built out, they're telling this shelter, you need to move these cabins 200 feet away. I mean, 200 feet is not like a far, that's not a, it's not an incremental distance. It's like pretty short. It's a pretty short distance from where they want to move an entire cabin to. And so the lawsuit imposed on this organization unfortunately won. And so they have to push these cabins 200 feet back. It's going to cost them $50,000. So this is coming from KXAN. It's going to cost $50,000 to move them 200 feet, said Lisa Knapp, founder of Nicole's Place. Oops, excuse me. She refers to the cabins on the shelter property as a girl's house, 11 to 17 years old, who have escaped the clutches of sex trafficking organizations. A nearby neighborhood architectural control committee and Nicole's Place a nearby neighborhood architectural control committee, they sued Nicole's Place for violating one of his restrictive covenants, according to Knapp. We aren't disclosing the name of the committee because we cannot disclose the location of Nicole's Place for safety reasons. The committee's attorney told KXAN Thursday that the parties settled on this in January of 2021, and Nicole's Place was given a 15 months at that point to move the buildings off the restricted 5 acres of the property. According to Terry Irion, the attorney representing Nicole's Place, the Neighborhood Architectural Control Committee stated you can only have one building on each property. We thought we were on unrestricted ground, but the title company made a mistake, said Knapp, who added this resulted in 2 Nicole's Place cabins spilling over onto some of the committee's property, therefore prompting the violation and lawsuit. I mean, that's a bit excessive. It's a bit excessive, right? I mean, people are so particular. Really? A sex trafficking, safe house or a anti-sex trafficking safe house for survivors, you can't be charitable with your land by 200 feet, and you would rather impose an entire lawsuit on these, for the time that they have to suspend all their operations, they could be taking in survivors. This is insanity. They say nonprofits can't afford to be sued, she said. Starting that all the money used in the lawsuit was from personal funds, not from donations made at Nicole's place. She said that she was forced to settle, and the settlement involves moving the cabins further back into the Nicole's place property, so it's officially off my committee's land. That's 200 feet. 200 feet, Knapp said. That's taking money away from kids and taking a home away from kids for 2 months. She said that the girls had been located until the move was complete, which should take about 60 days total. This happened just weeks before another shelter, the refuge, had to temporarily close following the allegations of abuse by staff members. Knapp said that Nicole's place would have had room for the girls who were taken from the refuge during the process. These were severely abused children that needed peace and quiet and healing, said Knapp. The lawsuit alleges Nicole's place knew about the rules and built anyway. Wow. I mean, I guess, like, I guess the church is like really under attack right now, especially people who want to help this industry. Not that this is, this is good, but it's almost as if the whole entire body that wants to combat this problem, like there's some form of war, individual war that each person or organization is going through. You know what I mean? It seems like a setback, but I'm hoping that there's going to be a slingshot forward at some point, because this is ridiculous. Who in their right, like who in the hell, I'm sorry, but who in the hell would say, oh, I'm going to, for 200 feet, I want to know what that's like. 200 feet. For 200 feet, they're going to impose an entire lawsuit on an organization trying to help sex trafficked girls. And you can't be charitable with your land for 200 feet to let them just like have a little slip of your land. I mean, I guess people are stingy in that way, where they have to, they're so by the book, not in a bad way. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, if that were my land and I knew the purpose of this land, I'd be like, yo, take like 100 more feet. Like if you need it, you know what I mean? Here, I gift you, I'm going to gift you this much more land so that way you guys can build like a fire pit or something, it's just incredible. Humanity nowadays is incredible. I'm astounded by people's stinginess and selfishness. I can't believe that. All right. Whoo, our time flies here. 2/3 of a football field, Orly Warnley says. 2/3 of a football field. So that's what 200 feet is. Yeah, I mean, I would still, I mean, I would still give that land up. 200 feet? I mean, to each his own, though. To each his own. That's wild to me. Anyway, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you rest up. Oh, look, I have little music here. Cool. I didn't see that. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you guys rest up, enjoy your families, eat good food. I'll see you guys back on Monday with our show, and I'll bring you guys some more news. Hopefully I'll be able to work a lot on the weekend without distraction. You guys have a great night or a great day. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much for tuning into Unravel with Natalie Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.